Hello everyone, happy Inktober. We are live with the first live stream happening during Inktober. See, Mahaswetaful is here, awesome, from West Bengal. Just wait a moment to let people arrive. I've been thrilled to see all the amazing Inktober work that people are doing, participating in the Inktober Portrait Challenge through the Sketchy Art School. There's just so many people doing so many cool things, and it's always interesting to see people's take on the lessons that I put out, and it's just really great to see you all learning and doing lots of work and doing lots of awesome drawing and inking. It's just a pleasure to see. So this will be a bit of a Inktobery addition to the live stream, and I've really enjoyed watching Vin and Arto's first classes. I've got some cool stuff out of that, like starting with a watercolor pencil and using a pipette has been really, really fun, just taking on some new ideas and trying things out, which is always a great thing to do with these sketchy challenges. And in Inktober, it's just a wonderful month for ink. I see names, people from all over the place, West Bengal, from Copenhagen, Pennsylvania. I love you, Nancy. Debbie from Canada. It's great to have you here, and thank you very much, Sketchy, for having me. It's always such a pleasure to be here and to draw together. So cool. Dean, thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying my Instagram feed. It was fun to go from the mural painting last week, like 100 square meters, to then get down to sketchbook size and to be drawing along with all of you. And it's just so cool seeing everyone working from the same muses. Jane's here from St. Louis, awesome. Cool. So nice to have you here. And I would like to introduce our muse now, Larissa Yamato, who's in Sydney. So I imagine she's asleep at the moment. And just a few words from Larissa here. I just draw if I can connect with the subject and somehow express a feeling using the lines. So Larissa hopes that you can also connect with the image and draw from your heart. I think this is a really lovely picture to work from, and today's prompt is radio. So it's almost out of frame, but the headphones on there, listening to some blissful, amazing music, or whatever you would like to associate with this image. The interpretation is up to you. Dawn's hoping to catch up on Inktober. How is everyone going with Inktober? I know some people have just started today. I've seen people who've done 4 drawings in a day, and it's really just great to see what everyone's doing. So feel free in the chat to get all Inktobery. I'll switch over here. Here I have some nice things that I've been playing with. This is actually a shaving brush. I haven't shaved much in recent years, and Kira was going to throw it away, and I was like, maybe I can paint with it. That could be cool. It's very big. What's that, DLL, the thumbs down? Is that for keeping up with Instagram, with Inktober, I think? Oh, you hate your work. Well, if you do the work, then I hope you just keep learning and reach a stage of acceptance and enjoyment. Or I hope the process of creating it at least has some kind of contentment in it for you. Either way, it's great to have you here. Great to have all of you here. Today I'm going to be using this mixed media paper. It's just a kind of standard, do whatever you want with that kind of paper. And it has a nice paper weight, so it doesn't warp too much. And I like working onto these blocks because they just kind of hold the paper in shape to some extent. So think, yeah, can start drawing. And I thought it'd be fun to incorporate Vin and Arto's, some of the stuff that I've picked up from them the last couple of days. So maybe you've got it on hand, maybe not, but I'm going to start with a preliminary drawing with a watercolor pencil. So I just hope I've got everything in the right space here. And just keep this pretty loose, just to get an idea of where I'm going to like put down my ink lines with. I love going straight to ink. But it's fun to take on these ideas of other amazing artists or revisit old ideas and just experiment and try things out. So let's start drawing. It's great. You can all ask questions and chat and stuff, and hopefully, if there are any questions directed right at me, I hope I'll spot them and be able to address it. And here, if you're not already signed up for the Inktober Portrait Challenge, it's not too late. People joining every day, and you have like access as long as the internet is around, presumably, and it's super cool fun. And I'm one of the featured teachers there, so you get a lot more of these when you sign up for that. So let's draw together. So this is a Derwent Deep Vermilion watercolor pencil, if that's of interest to you. And it's in the ink naturally class. I had a couple of classes where I started with a really pale ink, like turmeric ink, and it's really cool then to work into a really kind of subtle line work, to then put heavy, like a dark ink on top of it. And this is a similar kind of thing. It's interesting looking at the reference here. Like we can, as Vin mentioned, it can be super helpful having the reference right next to you. Like from when the eyebrow here dropping down and the nose, like I would have put this in line with that, but I think it's actually like stepped back a little bit here. So it's cool to be able to line things up and catch these shapes. And just by observing these subtle alignment things, that's stuff that I find can really help to get the likeness. But if you don't get the likeness, it's fine too. It's just fun to draw. But the more accurately you can observe those kind of alignment things, then the more practice you have with it, I think that really helps me, I feel, to get closer to getting a likeness, if you're interested in that kind of thing. So yeah, this can be relatively loose, just because we have a soft, subtle medium. I guess that can. I find that when I'm drawing like with graphite or something that's kind of more forgiving than ink, I kind of mess around with it a lot more. I'm not as decisive, and sometimes I just kind of doodle around, I guess. But now we just want to quickly get something down that then we can start inking on top of it. So, and this is just so wonderfully lit. Thank you so much, Larissa, for sharing this with us. It's so nice. I love these kind of strongly lit reference images. And it's so interesting in the Inktober challenge to see people like Vin and Atul choosing references that normally I wouldn't necessarily choose. And I think that's really cool with all of these sketchy challenges, that there are other artists out there choosing references that sometimes I would maybe just kind of fly past, but there's always something interesting, and sometimes it can be surprisingly delightful to work with something that I normally would just kind of overlook. But this is the kind of photo that I love. Strong contrast, strong light and shadow structure. It's just, I love it. I'll just have a quick look through the questions. So Oh, this is really light, but I hope you can all see that pretty well. Hello to everyone who's just joined. DLL, refusing to give up, is great. Definitely go through phases. I have been through phases thinking, what, just not being content with the work that I've been doing, and I've heard from many great artists that that's the discontent with your own work. It can, if you stick with it, that's because you have this sense of what you like, and what you want to work towards, and as long as you kind of have that sense of discontent, it means you're kind of aware that you've got something to strive towards, and it can really help to perceive that kind of frustration in that way. And I think it's something we can probably all relate to, right? Or is there anyone here in the chat who's just always totally loved everything that they've drawn? If there are, that's I'm amazed, and that's totally awesome too. But that kind of drive to improve and keep learning is, it's such a good thing to have. And frustration and discontent is something to really help motivate and focus your efforts. And I think learning to see what it is that you're unhappy about and what it is that you like when you do something that you like, to really recognize and what you've done that you like, and when you see work from other people, to notice what it is that you really enjoy, and then you can kind of bring that more into focus and keep working on it. All right, I grabbed some headphones from what was the website called? Jordan, I can't remember. Some royalty-free website, just so I can give a bit more definition to these headphones here. Because you could just kind of guess it, but since we have the prompt of radio, I thought it'd be nice just to take a cue from something that exists. Because I often find when I go into the realms of just making stuff up, that it's often really obvious that I've just made it up. So yeah, so if you would like, you can also use these headphones as a reference, or maybe you've got some on your desk. You can just grab them and use them. I've loved with today's lesson that I drew our family boombox from the 80s and encouraged people to take a trip down memory lane and to maybe draw their own music sound systems and radios from their past. And it's been so cool what people have been coming up with, and how it's like triggered a lot of memories for a lot of people about making mixtapes and all sorts of cool stuff. So that's been a really nice side effect of me drawing my family's boombox. So who here has done today's lesson? That would be really interesting to know. Asking if I can move the headphones. Melissa? I'm finished with them anyway. I just wanted something quickly to kind of imply the form here. And now I'm going to get rid of the headphones. So this is just a small thing. If you're making something up, or you're elaborating upon something, it can be good just to grab some kind of reference so you can really ground it in something that actually exists. I find that to be a useful thing to do. The reference is Larissa Yamato. In Instagram, I've got the Instagram account up. I can't remember at the moment off the top of my head, but if you check me on Instagram, you'll see in my stories that I've mentioned. Maybe someone here can tell me what Larissa's username is on Instagram, but they're also on Sketchy. Oh, Stina, I just read that you said your acorn ink was like tar. That's interesting. Here's mine. I'm gonna get my acorn ink now. So here's the underdrawing. I'm pretty happy with it, and now I'm going to start filling it in with ink. And I want to set up a really intense contrast. And for that, it's going to be really cool to use the pipette like Artur did in his, because I just love the way that puts so much ink on the paper. I have a stick pen here, broad-edged Elder stick pen. And okay, someone lost the reference photo on the feed. Was that because I put the headphones up? The reference photo, there's also a link below the stream, below the video. There's a link to the reference photo if you would like to download it and work from another device or something. Yeah, Polly, this is a good question. So you've collected acorns. If you watched the beginning of last week's live stream, I go through my acorn ink recipe there, and walnuts almost turn themselves into ink. You just got to put it in water. If they're really fresh and green, you might need to cook it, but otherwise they're quite easy to make ink from. But they get moldy really easy. All right, ink. Yeah, I'd like to start with some of these really using the broad edge here to start with some of these really dark areas. And I find it super helpful when you're going from the white of the paper to really start getting down quite quickly to put down some really dark inky areas, and it'll give you a sense of the value structure that you're working with. And maybe I could just also drop before I get too much ink going up here and start smearing everything all over the paper. Just put down a big, thick outline here. I just read that someone ended up with a lot of ink on their hands. That's a kind of common state to be in with ink making. I have like all these, oh, my hands look pretty clean today, but they're almost permanently stained with some kind of ink. And that's a great thing about using natural, non-toxic materials. That it's and I encourage everyone to look up what you're working with so that you can, with confidence, know that it is non-hazardous, because there are a lot of things out there in nature which are not necessarily safe to use. So if you've looked it up and you know, okay, this is a safe material to work with, then it's all right if you get it on your hands, isn't it? I just want to mention here, I'm like just started kind of mapping out shadow shapes here, and this, I feel like this is quite a subtle, soft edge shadow, so I don't want to kind of box it in with a line here, as opposed to this shadow line in the like the shoulder, armpit. This is really soft, so I'm going to leave that for now. I wonder, while I'm over here, and before I've started drawing in the face, I'm going to put down some ink and water and pipette some ink in here. So who else loved the pipette tutorial with Artur? I really like that the surface he's working on, how you can just tip it and let the ink run and use it how he wants it. This pipette is a bit tricky. Sometimes I get like sediment from the ink stuck in it. So if you've got a natural ink with a lot of kind of particles and graininess in it, then it might be a bit tricky to use with a pipette, as I found out. But you can filter it. And I saw you mention that, Stina, about filtering your Acorn ink. Maybe that's going to help. We can chat about it privately. But I wonder why your Acorn ink is so tar-like. I've not had that happen before. Okay, so this was a synthetic watercolor brush, a number 12. I think that's 12 millimeters. A Da Vinci Cosmotop spin. But now I'm going to go back to my Deadwood Elder stick pen, which I love. That's interesting here. So this is actually, we've got like a really dark nostril within a not so super dark shadow space. So maybe good to kind of brush in that shadow first. So I'm going to switch between the pen and brush and hopefully give this a chance to dry. And when it's dry, I'll be able to come back and really add that intense darkness to the nostril there. And a brush is a really enjoyable, lovely way to put down a larger kind of surface area of ink. And you can smush it around with paper towel or your fingertips or whatever. And squinting down at the reference photo just like always helps. When you're deciding, okay, do I actually want to put ink here? Because sometimes, you know, you get your ink there and it's like, well, that's way too dark. What have I done? But if you squint at your reference first, you can have a clearer idea of like what's light and what's shadow. Because as I squint down on this, I see that the lips are actually have a similar value to this light skin areas, but it's gonna need it's darker, so I don't want it to be super dark. But this watered down grey of the Acorn ink, I think, is a nice kind of mid-tone. Once again here, this will hopefully give this a chance to dry so that it can come and add that nice dark definition of the center line between the lips. And there's often like a really nice highlight on the lips. So it's nice to kind of preserve that. Yeah, and this softer kind of color, maybe this is going to be just a fitting, like a good way to put in that kind of shadow area, which I didn't want to mark with a line because this is really light. I could maybe come in and layer in some more kind of darkness there as it dries. Oh, Amanda, you spilled all your ink on day one. Oh, I've spilled ink. I hope that wasn't too much of a great inconvenience for you. But maybe now you have to make some so that you've got more ink to work with. I feel like, yeah, this is interesting. Just looking at the time, it's like been 20 minutes, and I feel like there's already so much information here. And I think that's thanks to the really clear value structure of this uh, reference photo. So often, um, yeah, just really clear lighting. Lighting is just so important. And if you've got nice clear lighting, then starting with a good reference is often a good way to, it's a really good start for doing any portrait, having a well-lit reference. My dad is a photographer, and he always said to me that lighting is the most important thing for a portrait. Okay, this is a good point, Emily. Um, the, the paper that you're using can really make a big difference, and if you're getting really wet, it's helpful to have some kind of watercolor paper or this multimedia paper. It's not like the highest quality watercolor paper, but it's fine. I'd really like to draw that nostril, but if I do it now, it's going to bleed. I wonder. I'm going to put some ink over here on my plate, and maybe that big brush here, like for this kind of soft edge, could be interesting. I haven't used this much at all, and it wasn't intended as a painting brush, but it's worth trying out. Dawn, good question. Am I using my normal paper? No. I usually use this anniversary edition Aquarelle paper, which is a watercolor paper. This is mixed media. This is not as heavyweight. It's buckling quite a bit here where all the ink is. So this is not the one that I've used nearly every other time. Something different today. And I would like to try some hot press paper soon too in a live stream, because it'll be interesting to see how that behaves. Cool, Marty. That's awesome that you're learning so much just by watching. That's great. I have also found it incredibly helpful to watch people work, and you can just take whatever ideas, try things out. Some things may work for you, some things maybe not, and just go with it. So here's my shaving brush. Good for filling in a big area. I was a bit careful with the ink there. So all these bristles, that's cool for this hair area. I think that's pretty nice. It's so big. There's not really a lot I can do with it, I think. Although sometimes it's really interesting to challenge yourself using unusual tools to draw and paint with. Try the pipette again. It's cool, just kind of these random things that happen. The way it's like watercolor as well. The way that the ink just kind of disperses, and yeah, and it's fun just working with the properties of the medium that we use. It's interesting actually using the tip of the pipette as a kind of drawing tool as you're squeezing the ink out. It's kind of a weird wobbly plastic pipette. Thank you, Debbie. And glad you like it. Wendy, how's everyone going at home with for those of you who are drawing along, painting, inking along at home? I'm going to go back to these headphones for a moment. Marty is asking what a pipette is. This is quite an unusual one. Usually, I've known them in the past to be made of glass, and they're often used like in medicine bottles for a small dosage of some liquid. So it has a rubber or plastic kind of balloon that you squeeze, and as you let go, it sucks the liquid into it. So that's what a pipette is. And as you squeeze it, it pushes the liquid back out. And yeah, I know them from like medicine bottles and stuff like that. I have seen some, you can get some inks that are actually packaged, like they come in a glass bottle which has a pipette built into the lid, which is cool. I'd never considered it an actual drawing tool in the past. It was just a way to get your ink out of the ink pot, but Arto's changed that for me. Very apothecary, yeah. So cool. So this is interesting here, just the reference image I found of the headphones has a similar kind of lighting. It's very dark. I'll just briefly bring that up here. I'll just drag it over here, and you can see that, and that's important if you're looking up reference for some object that you don't want to just make up. It's important to see that it's lit similarly. And here you can see the light is coming from a particular direction, and it's the same with the headphones. And these are quite dark, and the headphones are not the star of this portrait. So I think it's nice that it's dark, a bit more subdued, and just see this really interesting, there's an edge of light, and then a shadow plane, and then light and shadow. And I think that's just a cool kind of guide for drawing these headphones. Maybe I'll just put that here for a moment. If anyone is looking at the stream here and would like to kind of base their drawing off of this, like I am, then I'll just put this here for a moment. But I also don't want to get too hung up on these headphones, like just kind of implying things, and it's not all about the headphones. Okay, I think that's fine for now. I'll get rid of those headphones. Unless anyone watching wants me to bring them back up, but you can use any headphones. It's not super important. Things are starting to dry over here. I'm really looking forward to drawing this nostril. I think it's going to be really cool. And yeah, a lot of this at the moment is still super subtle, and I feel like it's very different to the way I normally draw. I can still see the watercolor pencil drawing underneath. Ooh, that's dark. And fully loaded pen. Dangerous. Big blobs of ink. Radio. Do many people here actually still listen to the radio? I don't. I like to be in control of what I listen to. Stina, I have not, but Wendy just mentioned a couple of comments ago, very apothecary, and I now, in the village we're living, I live across the road from the apotheker, and I'm going to go get him to hook me up with some alcohol to make alcohol inks. And that's something I want to do for the next Ink Naturally, to get some really cool alcohol inks happening. Because that was something I talked about last week. A lot of these natural inks are very wet and they stay wet for a long time. And making inks with an alcohol base will then evaporate. This is what I'm hoping, is that it won't be as forgiving. You won't be able to push it around so much, but alcohol-based ink should evaporate really quickly, and then you'll be able to work on top of it and layer up much quicker. So it's something that's in store. There'll be more info on alcohol-based natural inks coming in the near future. This is interesting. I wet the paper here before I dropped the ink in, but it's not something I do a lot, pre-wetting the paper. I know some people do, and there's some really cool like wet and wet effects you can get happening with that. Maybe something over here, like in this, do something with that, but I don't know, it's just something I've never done a lot. I used to pre-stretch watercolor paper by like totally immersing the entire sheet of paper and then using special tape so it's tight like a drum so it doesn't warp. This is warping now as I'm working on it. But I don't think that's what you mean. Or is that what you mean? I'm not sure that resisted in areas. Because things are like, there are areas where it's pooling here because the paper's not flat. And if the entire paper was pre-wetted, then that wouldn't happen. It would stay flat, which is better, kind of, but takes more effort and preparation. That's why I like this really heavyweight aquarelle paper that I usually use, because the paper's so heavy that you don't really need to pre-wet it. Come back to this brush. At the bottom of the page here, I have this empty space where I can just kind of test the intensity of the ink. So if I want it lighter, then I'm like, oh, okay, I can just kind of push things around a bit. And here, like this. Get some really neat kind of effects just pushing the ink around. In upcoming Inktober lessons, there'll be some brush work. Lots of fun. I'm looking forward to sharing that with you. I love this kind of bristly dry brush look. It's can be kind of hard to control, but it's just about letting go of control, because you've got these, you know, just a kind of unpredictable pattern of bristles and brush strokes. Can be really cool. This is quite light. Maybe a hair dryer would be convenient at the moment to speed up the drying of this, because I feel at the moment this is like a really nicely prepared portrait, which with just a little bit of intense, like concentrated dark line work. There are some areas where I think it's kind of would be perfect, and it just needs to be a bit drier to get in there. And some areas like just there's a lot of big shapes here, and just some of these little marks on the skin and eyelashes, eyebrows. Just these little bits of detail, I think, would add a really nice kind of finishing touch. But we still have 16 minutes, so maybe, you know, we've still got some drying time. Do I ever add gum arabic? I add cherry sap sometimes, because that's what I can forage here, and I have used gum arabic as well. And yeah, it gives a different consistency. So this does not have gum arabic in it, and it's quite watery. And yeah, it just changes the way that the ink interacts with the pen and the paper. And when you use a binder, it'll often have a kind of sheen to it when it's dry. This will be quite matte when it dried. So I don't know if you have a preference for a glossy kind of image, then that can be really cool with binder. Like cherry sap makes it glossy. And Stina, are you still here? I wonder about, you said it's like working with tar, your acorn ink that you made. I wonder how much cherry sap you put in there, because it's just that thickens it. But that's something that's totally using binder. It's just kind of a personal preference of what do you want the ink to feel like when you work with it. But it can be frustrating to work with if it's too watery, and then it's great to add binder. Um, when you have a lot of time, and it's already happening here, there's some nice layering happening, but I find layering up really kind of gentle washes of ink is really nice. And you just kind of build up your shadows from white to darkness. Oh, I just smudged that nose line. Oops. But it's not really that dark anyway. So a little accident brought my attention to that. Oh, there's just such a calming reference photo to work from. Thank you, Larissa. So nice. So if you're working along to this and also doing a portrait of Larissa, when you share it on social media, Instagram, you can use the hashtag Inktober Portrait Challenge and the hashtag Ink Naturally, even if you're not using natural ink. Because if you're inking along with me, then you're inking naturally anyway. And those are two great hashtags at the moment, just to see what everyone's doing. It's always a delight to see the work that people do and share with each other, and it's just nice. Stina's here, and there's no sap in it. Okay. Pretty thick. Interesting. You forgot it on the stove. Okay. Something I like to do when I'm making ink is to bring it to the boil and then just kind of turn it off. And it depends if you want to reduce a lot of liquid. So if it's too watery, that it's good to let it evaporate, and with a low heat you can kind of do that, or you bring it up to the boil and then turn it off. Is something I do to kind of hopefully save energy and prevent my inks from burning, because it's good to be there. And yeah, I guess you've got to keep an eye on it. Yeah, Dean, the watercolor pencil disappeared nicely, right? It was just, it's nice to start with I guess a preliminary drawing can just be a really nice safety net. Be like, okay, the drawing looks good, so if I ink it right, it's gonna work out. And here, I can still see it's pretty subtle, the watercolor pencil that I started with. But I think it's a really nice way to start the portrait, to get things set up, and it pretty much disappears as you work with it. And I think the residual kind of line work, which is still there, it's interesting to just have a little something going on. It's a little like behind the scenes to see that line work still in there. That's awesome. That you made ink with leaves and some tomato sauce. I would love to see what that ink looks like. That sounds great. Were they edible leaves as well? Is it like a delicious edible ink? This is too wet to put some lines in. I see some places where some lines would be nice, but I can't wait forever for things to dry. But I can add the eyelashes here, and then maybe just adding a bit more, a couple of layers to the ink wash. Here I have my, I've used everything I had on the plate at the beginning. Got this metal nib pen. So add some fine details, and drawing with these pens, it's like a lot more intensity than brushwork, that you can add like a really concentrated amount of ink to a small area, unless the paper's already wet, and then you kind of bleed into it. But if it's dry enough, you can end up with some really nice high contrast dark line work. Whereas with this ink anyway, which has this nice grey tone, like it can be you can get it really dark, but a crisp line is kind of the yeah, you just kind of have the most pigment in one kind of mark, and brushwork is lovely for spreading a lot of ink around, but with this ink, it's you never have the same kind of intensity as you do when you just use a pen like this. Nancy's making beet ink, excellent. It's such a accessible, thankful ink to make using beetroot. It's just gets such an intense color from it. So this is helpful again. I'm just squinting at the I'm drawing now that I'm putting in these the darkest areas, to just kind of see how the overall relationship between the value structure is. So something I'm trying to do this dark thing down here, but there's a lot more shadow going on. It's tricky here because in the nose there's the below the nose is really dark, and the beneath the nose here looks light, but it's actually really dark as well. So I'm trying to keep it light, but it's actually really dark, and that's making this shadow underneath look kind of weird, because I'm just trying to keep it a lot lighter than it should be. So maybe we should just wash some more ink in here. And this highlight on the nose is actually also in the shadow shape. And these are these tricks, and we can trick ourselves into seeing highlights where it's actually shadow. So maybe that whole underside of the nose just needs to be darker. I'll have to add that really dark area later. Yeah, for those I'm really glad that you liked it. It was really cool making this ink with Icon, and he was pretty proud to have his own ink that he helped make. So for those of you who have not seen the Acorn ink video yet, check out last week's live stream, because that started with the Acorn ink making video. Or if you're in the Inktober class, then it's in the first class as a bonus tutorial to just see that ink making video again. Because just this week, I've just found so many acorns. And a lot of people have asked, what can I use if I don't have acorns? Or and anything that's high in tannin is a really good alternative, because it's the tannin in the acorns which reacts with the iron, which makes it really nice and dark. So there are all sorts of leaves and barks and different things that you can use instead of acorns. So yeah, those videos are out there if you want to know more about making your own acorn ink. Our time has almost drawn to a close. Nice stuff in there happening over here in the way the ink is dispersing, but I want it to be darker. So maybe just as a finishing touch to just add a lot more contrast. So here I'm kind of pre-wetting this and I want to flood it in with more ink. And the only thing that I haven't used on the plate that I had in the beginning is this other ink. And this is my special dark acorn ink. It has avocado ink in it as well, so it's a bit red. But that looks super red. In contrast to this cool grey colour, this is just really dark. So this is gonna just add a really nice contrast. Maybe I can use my shaping brush to flick it around a bit. Maybe that's enough, just setting up this edge of contrast. So there's still some of that nice subtlety of what's happening in the ink over here. Yeah, that's cool. Just that like the different color that's now entered into it. This is it's a really nice touch. That now it just feels totally different with that red, warm color as a contrast to the gray here. So yeah, this is avocado ink, which is like chopped up and cooked avocado seeds with baking soda while it's boiling, and it's avocado ink mixed with acorn ink. So this looks amazingly red. It's kind of surprising me at the moment. But yeah, avocado seeds are a wonderful ink making resource. Oops. Maybe. Oh, it's time to end. I'm not ready to stop. But maybe it's just a really good opportunity to let this dry, and then I'll be able to add some finishing touches once it's dried. So thank you all for joining me, and if you enjoyed this, if you're having fun with Inktober, give this video a thumbs up, and yeah, when you share your work, tag me. I'd really love to see what you've done, And thank you so much for spending this hour with me and Larissa and the sketchy community. As always, it's a pleasure drawing with you. Before I end this, are there any specific questions you would like me to address? Maybe I missed something as I was drawing. If you have any questions, now would be the time. And there's a slight delay, so I'll just have to wait. If there are not any specific questions, then I just wish you all a wonderful Inktober and look forward to drawing again next weekend. And I'm not sure, maybe someone here already knows what's the prompt for next Sunday. I don't know at the moment, but I'm sure we're going to have a really nice muse to work from, something that'll be fitting to the prompt. There's quite a lot of glare on this. Here we go, that looks better. At the moment I just have a single light source. I'm still working on the lighting situation in the new home. But yeah, that'll give a bit better idea of how it looks. Maybe that's it. Unless the time lag is so big that no one's answered yet. That's always a bit... I wonder how long it takes before you hear what I'm saying. But either way, I'm just, yeah, happy that you all came and were drawing with me today. So thanks a lot. And thank you, Larissa. Thank you, Sketchy. Thank you, Acorns and Avocados. And I hope you all have a lot of fun with the upcoming prompts in the coming days, and to keep learning from Vin and Arto and myself, and learning from each other. I think the community aspect of Sketchy and these challenges is just a beautiful thing. So that's it for today. Melissa made charcoal, that's awesome. I've not made charcoal myself. I've gathered a lot of charcoal. We had a barn burn down in our village, and I've got charcoal sorted for a while, but you can make it, and it's awesome that you did. And that's something I want to do in the next Ink Naturally, to make charcoal ink, because it's amazing. It's so black and it kind of glitters. So that's something that we have to look forward to in November together, charcoal ink. So maybe you'll be able to save some of your charcoal for making ink with. All right. Have a wonderful Sunday and life, and see you next time.